Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Chat with Andela. This is a fun speed interview where guests come on and answer a few questions related to their work. My name is Marcio Rangi, and I'll be your host for today. You can find me online on Twitter at Marcy_Rangi. So let's get into it. Today, our guest is Clinton Obura. Clinton is the head of sales and partnerships at UberEats here in Nairobi, Kenya. And we are going to engage him today. Clinton, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready, and thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Let's do this. So, Clinton, tell us, what do you do at UberEats?
That's a mix of things. It's a funny thing because when I look at what is in my job description, what I was hired for, and what I'm doing now, I think as with all companies, roles evolve. I think when I started, I was supposed to be head of sales specifically just for Kenya. So onboarding restaurants and closing as many restaurants as possible. So on Uber Eats, one of our key value propositions is our selection and experience. So by selection, I mean when someone goes on to Uber Eats, they find every single restaurant they're looking for. So that's what I do. That's what my team does, basically selling into restaurants. Then on top of that, we also manage those restaurants when they're on Uber Eats. So that's where the partnership sort of role comes into play, just making sure they are successful on the platform. So it's a mix of both sales and partnerships, basically.
Fantastic. And what would you say one needs to do to become a head of sales and partnerships?
What does one need to do to become a head of sales and partnerships? I think it's a mix of things. I think one, just having a basic understanding of business acumen, of how businesses work and how to add value to businesses. Because at the end of the day, in a sales or a partnerships role, most often than not, you're talking to business owners, you're talking to CEOs, you're talking to CMOs who really understand their business. So having a deep insight into a business is really key to that. Number two, I would think is just key people skills, just being able to talk to people and get information out of them, basically. And just also number three is influencing skills. So influencing is what I call the ability to get people to see things your way when they don't necessarily report to you. These are people, the third parties out there living their lives, but being influencing them to see things your way. And then I think finally is just discipline, right? Because sales is all about talking to us. It's not rocket science. You talk to as many people as possible. You close as many of them as you have like a conversion rate over time. So you need to have like what I call sales rigor, that sales discipline, to constantly talk to as many people as possible to make sure that over time you're closing as many of them as possible.
Fantastic. And this sounds like a very impactful role in a lot of different angles. So my question is, how do you deal with failure?
I think the other thing with sales is that failure is a key part of the job, right? In the sense that you're never going to close everyone. That's basically it, right? So I think a key thing in sales is your ability to iterate your strategy on the go. So you need to figure out really quickly what works, what doesn't work, and act on it accordingly, right? That's one. Then number two, you need also to, how you have that serenity prayer, the ability to accept, what do you say? Accept that which...
the things you cannot change.
You cannot change, and then the things you can change are within your control. That's basically it. I think a sales guy needs to be like, you need to be saying the serenity prayer every morning, because there are things you can control and things you can't control, and just being able to focus on that which you can control for the best possible outcomes.
Fantastic. Okay, so now let's go back a bit in time in your career. What was your first paid position ever?
Internship at Brainwave Communications as like a digital media intern, so like a digital media strategist. So like helping customers to make use of the internet, buy ads on the internet, be successful on the internet. Shout out to Diallo, my first boss.
Fantastic. We saw that plug come in. And what's that one thing that you know now that you wish you actually knew when starting out?
I think because I had a tech background, because I studied computer science, I think I probably should have focused a lot more on the business side of my skills a lot earlier in life. My business acumen, my people skills, because I think where I am now, I've gotten to a point in my life where I realize that if I want to build an app, if I want to build a solution, there's always people who can build a solution, but there's very few people who can walk into an office and close a deal with the CEO. That's a whole completely different mindset, right? That's one. Then number two is that just not building things for the sake of building things, right? Because I think that's something that a lot of engineers fall into that trap.
Yes.
Just building things for the sake of building things. For example, I used to make this joke when I was in university. How many apps do people build in universities that never see the light of day? Like there's so many of them that never see the light of day. So I think for me, it's just learning where to apply my skills where they are relevant and not just running after every single magical thing that comes up. And that's what happens with engineers, right? Oh, there's a new platform for doing this and this and this. Then everyone gets really excited about it and you go work on it and go work on it. After 3 months, another platform comes up. So just making use of your time as best as possible, and just keeping in mind that all those shiny things, they'll always be there. Like they'll never end. But you need to focus on what's important and what moves the needle for you in your career and in your life. Yeah.
Fantastic. Some sound advice there. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Clinton. All right. As we wind up this section, Clinton, tell us, what is the one thing you look forward to most at work?
I think the people at UberEats and Uber at large are like just awesome. I think you have like some smart and very driven people. So just being in that high energy environment, that's really cool. And then number two is the unpredictability of it all. Like I probably can predict 40% of how my day is going to go. The other 60%, I have no idea it's going to go, right? So I think I'm one of those people who gets bored really quickly. So like being able to not predict what's going to happen in a day, that really keeps me on my toes. So I'd say those two things are like top.
Fantastic, fantastic. And speaking of Uber Eats, do you remember your first day? How would you describe using 2 words your first day at Uber Eats?
I was in awe and I was confused.
Oh, okay.
I think those
Interesting
two.
mix.
I think I was in awe and I was confused. I think when you're outside looking in, there's so much you don't see. Like there's because think about a consumer facing app. If anyone has ever built an app, the consumer front is just so simple because that's how it should be, right? It should be so simple for users to make it work. But then once you join a company and look at the backend that makes the magic possible, and you are like, Jesus Christ, this is just on another level of sophistication and like so much technical nuance. There's just awe and confusion, as in those two. But like after a few days, after you get to know the flow of things, you step into your role, you step into the rhythm of things. You really get to understand the role that you signed up for and what is expected of you. Yeah.
Fantastic. So the final question for you, for anyone who's looking up to Clinton Obura and they're like, one day I want to be like you, why Uber Eats? Why did you choose that in your next step of your career?
I think a couple of things. I think one, I'm the sort of person who believes that there's no such thing as a predestined career path. You know, like I don't believe you're supposed to become a doctor for the rest of your life, because that school of thought, the assumption that school of thought makes is that you're also the same person throughout your whole life, which is not accurate, right?
Yes.
People change over time. So I try to reinvent myself over time. So when I think about it, I worked for Google, which was a really cool company, worked in advertising, worked in cloud technology. I think for me, it was just an interesting time to change to a completely different industry with completely different challenges, with completely different nuances, because I feel like someone is a some collective of all the experiences. Like all your experiences make you a well-rounded person, and the more diverse your experiences, the better. That's what I personally believe. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Clinton. Thank you for giving us, an exclusive look into your career right now at Uber Eats, even in the past. Thank you so much for that. So now on to our second section of this, Chat with Andela interview with Clinton Obura. We call this section the hit or miss section, where you get to tell us in one word how you feel about some common industry concepts. So Clinton, are you ready for this?
Shoot.
Fantastic. All right, let's kick off. Company offsites?
Hit.
Hackathons?
Hit.
What about work friendships?
Hit.
Traveling for work.
Hit.
Company provided feeding.
Hit.
Oh, fantastic. Office parties.
Hit.
Okay. Town hall meetings.
Definite hit.
Performance review cycle.
Hit.
What about multiple screen setup for a techie?
If you can afford it, hit.
Interesting. Swag, something we all get.
Hit or that's the jury's still out. Depends on the company, I feel. Really depends
Okay,
on the company. Yeah.
interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
What about events and conferences?
Definite hit.
Side gigs?
Miss.
Okay. Stock
Miss.
options?
Hit.
What about end of year bonuses?
Hit, 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 hit.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that actually winds our section and our interview today. Thank you very much, Clinton, for chatting with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on this episode. So for anyone who's listening in, would you like to see your favorite techie join us? Drop your suggestions in the comment section below. And don't forget to engage with us on social media. The hashtag, as always, is Chats with Andela. Ciao.